Okay, we're recording. Okay, I'll call this budget workshop to order for Tuesday, February 19th at 6:02. And everyone's here. And first up is the Warehouse Point Fire District. So come to the table. Jim? Jim? I think that the Warehouse Point Fire District should be put back in the Town of East Windsor budget. And I can go on and say why, but I think you're here for the same reason, so maybe I'll let you say why we should put you back in the budget.
Go ahead, Jim. I'll let you think, and I'll finish off.
Okay, I have a couple of points to make. I'm glad to hear you want to do that. And thank everybody for trying to resolve this situation. But I do have a couple of points to make. And the first is dispel the notion that the fire district left the town or quit the town or wanted to go on their own. I see that that's out there on Facebook and people talk about that. The district focus primarily has been to take care of district real estate, firehouses and parking lots after the town stopped funding any effort in this area during approximately the last 10 years of the 40 years that the town funded the fire district. The manner in which the district came to be removed from the town budget is as follows. In late 2015, the Fire Commission was encouraged by the town treasurer at the time, Kim Lord, to act as the district entity that it was and levy a tax to cover the deficiencies. Having had experience with another fire district within a town, Kim, along with the tax collector and assessor, devised a system by which the funding of fire protection responsibilities in each side of town would be separated. This was not an adversarial arrangement and not entered into haphazardly. These three town officials were very helpful and even attended an open house at the firehouse to explain the tax bill structure. The district then entered into an agreement with the first selectman in good faith, and as a result, the district's line was removed from the budget. The agreement was then stopped by the Board of Selectmen as the first selectman did not have the authority to make it, but district funding was not returned to the budget. Essentially, the music stopped and the fire district was left without a chair. Subsequently, the town attorney opined that the separate taxing mechanism was not legal. The town attorney suggested three options for resolution. One was returning the fire district funding to the town budget in the amount allocated to the Broadbrook Fire Department, so the district taxpayers would only have to fund the costs necessary to care for district property. The district immediately agreed to this proposal, but sometime during the following 10 days, the town attorney decided that this solution required more study. No studying has been done in the 3 years since. I want to make it clear that no fire district commissioner or fire department member was ever trying to pick a fight with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. People have said it's the district's fault, they left the town and the budget. You would think the Warehouse Point Fire District has seceded from the town of East Windsor. This is not true, it was not the intention. The district and the fire department are an important part of the town. The district never would have pulled out of the town budget if not for the funding agreement they thought they had with the town. The objective has always been to raise money to care for the buildings. So now, district taxpayers pay 100% of Warehouse Point Fire Service and also pay for Broadbrook Fire Service through the overall town tax. appropriating an equal dollar amount to the fire district as is appropriated to Broadbrook would be a partial and temporary solution to the problem of unfair burden on Warehouse Point taxpayers. I say partial because the amount stated for Broadbrook is not the total cost of Broadbrook Fire Service, but it would provide at least some relief. The true cost of Broadbrook fire operations would likely come very close to Warehouse Point if all costs that reside elsewhere in the town budget were considered. I have several examples of those. The glaring one is the building expense. There's no building expense listed in the proper budget. They have a firehouse. There's building maintenance, repairs, cleaning, electricity, water, sewer fees, snow plowing.
Those are all under town properties, with every other town building.
That's my point. It's not under this 430,000 or 460,000 that you're considering for Broadbrook, does not show that. Also, workers' comp insurance, fire marshal, capital purchases, payroll expenses. None of that appears in the Broadbrook column. Dispatch fees are $20,000. Finally, you guys are the Board of Selectmen. You're in charge. You're responsible for providing services, all town services, to all town residents and taxpayers. And I think this is an important one for you to finally resolve. So I just hope that you will wholeheartedly try to fix this situation.
Okay, thank you.
Louis Flynn, I'm the chairman of the Board of Fire Commissioners in Warehouse Point. And I don't want to repeat what Jim has said, but I appeal to you in the spirit of fairness. And I hope for the taxpayers on the western side of the town that fall within our jurisdiction. They are assessed by us using the town grade list, a certain amount of money. So it appears on their tax bill, the town tax and the fire tax. Over here, on this side of town, it's just the town tax, because the town picks everything up for Broadbrook, both on the books and buried in the budget. And that would be fine if Warehouse Point got some relief, but there's no relief, because they're paying, taxpayers in Warehouse Point are paying an extra stipend to us, and they're paying their share of the Broadbrook Fire Department. And that isn't fair. And everybody can say, oh, well, you left the thing, you did this, you did that. We had a legitimate budget of $680,000 last year. And we came in beneath that, slightly beneath that, we hope, okay, because it's not over yet. But the difficulty is, so many things in Broadbrook are buried in the town budget. They've got a firehouse for free. The maintenance and repairs on it are for free because the town pays for that. Their insurances, their workers' comp is in the town's workers' comp. Their payroll comes out of the office down the hallway. All that's we don't do it. We do that all ourselves, and we pay for these things ourselves. And so it's not comparing an apple to an apple. It's comparing an apple to an orange. Look at the situation. We have very good cooperation between the two departments. Basically, we answer each other's calls so that they get a staff on hand that can deal with the fire or the car crash or whatever it is. And we did a tally. I mean, there was almost 300 last year, this past year, the year before, where we were joint responders to an event. We respond to as they do to the medical calls. We're ahead of the ambulance. The ambulance bills for, we don't bill for anything. We run a truck, it's not unusual to see a truck go out to Barber Hill or Windsor Road out there. That's a haul. It costs money, but all right, that's what we're in the business of doing, it's helping people. But what we're not in the business of doing, and it's unfair, is we're paying our share and then somebody else's share. That's wrong. So how do you cure it? Well, there's 1,000 different ideas on that. But the way of trying to make it somewhat fair, and I appeal to you in a sense of fairness, not the legalities of it or anything else, the fairness. We would respect you, or we would ask of you and respect you if you would give us what you give them just as a stipend. And we had it before, oh, yeah, we know you're not going to take that and go to Hawaii. Nobody's offered me a trip to Hawaii, I can tell you that. But the long and the short of it is, it would even it up. It wouldn't even up the things that are buried in the town budget. And it wouldn't even up the fact that we have 2 firehouses to take care of, and they have none. And may I ask, I don't know, but the scuttlebutt is that they're going to get a new fire truck on top of it, throw a bond, to the tune of $800,000 or something of that nature. So it isn't only what they're asking for, what's buried in the budget, they got a brand new fire truck out of it. We've got one over there that's 25 years old. That's a first-line fire truck. We can't replace that right now. It's preposterous. And the other thing that's happening, and it's got to be recognized, the time of the horn blowing and somebody getting off a tractor or running out of a store that's a member of the fire department, that's gone. Gone, gone, gone. That's the way it was in 1940. It's not the way it is now. So we've had to supplement with part-time firefighters that are qualified. And the situation is worse. Why are we doing it? We're doing it because we're trying to provide a service that's needed to the town. It's a serious thing if there's a car crash and people are stuck in a car, or if someone's home's on fire. It's a serious, serious matter. And it goes right to the head of the list of being serious. So I suggest at least to even it out a little bit and to give the people some relief in the taxpayers in Browns Point, because we've heard legal opinions back and forth that oh, you can't give Browns Point a break because they're paying the other thing. Put that aside. What you can do is you can restore the stipend, make it an even stipend. At least that gives us a running start at our visit. Will it pay our whole costs for the year? Of course not. It won't. I said that earnestly and honestly. But it would give us a heck of a break. And we're looking forward to having to put more people on, as is Broadbrook. They want to put more part-timers on. And frankly, it's a very sensible thing. If you stopped over and saw stuff during the day, I'm extremely proud of the part-timers. They're uniformed, they're trained, they're ready to go, they're doing stuff, they're checking the equipment, and they're there. And they're out the door if the horn blows. That's as fast as Hartford has a response to it. But I would really ask you to consider and understand that we're not spendthrifts over there. We squeeze it pretty tight. And the problem is that it's just sort of a battle that's difficult. And it's the way it's set up now, it's unfair to the taxpayers on the west side of town, or in our district, because they're getting hit for the same thing twice. And that's not what it was designed to do. I admit, we have a right to tax, that's fine. Okay, that's what they should do. At least have some contribution by the town that's equal to the contribution of a stipend that's given to Broadway. We're doing the same thing they are. And it's costing them very close to what it costs us. It's just you can't see it on paper, you have to go hunting for it. So with that in mind, I base my plea on fairness. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? I guess I'll say something now too, just, just kind of echo what you said. I thought about this and I'll explain from my perspective how this happened. And it wasn't, definitely the fire department was not part of how this came about. And this is the way I see it. That a major problem developed in the budget process of January 2016 to the adopted budget of June of 2016. That was the fiscal year 16-17 budget. In June of 2016, the adopted budget by the town only had funding for the Broadbrook Fire Department. There was no funding for the Warehouse Point Fire Department. On July 1st, 2016, no money was available for fire protection in Warehouse Point. That's the way the town was. We could have just said, okay, no fire protection, but we didn't do that, and we shouldn't have done that. So to continue providing fire protection in Warehouse Point, the town created a tax inequality in the taxpayers of East Windsor that still exists today, 3 years later. To provide adequate funding, the town, the residents in Warehouse Point have to pay for all the Warehouse Point fire taxes because that money wasn't available on July 1st, 2016. And then, because of the normal taxing process, the taxpayers in Warehouse Point also have to pay for their share of Broadbrook Fire. So really, we've created the town in that budget process where they left out the Warehouse Point Fire District, created double taxation. And also let me say that before, I guess in 1975 approximately, I believe the fire district was taxing then too. And the town gave the fire district a stipend to help that offset that balance. And I think Kim Lord called it a grant, but this is the same thing. We're saying, okay, just to make the taxing somewhat fair, give them a grant or a stipend equal to the amount that's in the budget, this year's budget for the next year's budget for the Broadbrook Fire Department. And as you pointed out, and it's quite true, I think it's $464,000 that are in the Broadbrook budget doesn't cover all the expenses of the Broadbrook Fire Department, but it's a beginning. It's a beginning of making the tax inequality a little more equal. We can do that. So I think it should be put in the budget. And so now I'll open it up to other board members. Go ahead, Charlie.
Now, looking at this, what happened or didn't happen, I wasn't here, but I don't think it really matters. I think what matters is we are where we are. And I think this board represents all of the residents of East Windsor. And we should be doing something on a fair play basis so people are paying the same amount as best we can. Now, I think we should do something about funding the Warehouse Point Fire Department this year. But I'm going to look to Amy at the moment that I think that what the amount is, I think should be relegated to non-discretionary items, and that I would expect that you would pay those non-discretionary items out of your office to do that, so that whatever the amount comes to, then we would do that. That would be my take on this, so that it's not that we want to buy a fire truck, you want to do these other things, but there's a lot of non-discretionary, like the payroll, the people that are on the payroll. It's non-discretionary. You've got to have those people there today, because you don't have the volunteers. There's electricity, there's fuel, there's a lot of things that make it up as non-discretionary items. That's how I would view it. I don't know, Amy would thoughts are on that.
Well, my only concern is the whole 2% thing. We fail 3 budgets, 2% of nothing is nothing. So at the first week of June, does that leave them too late to then tax themselves to make up the money if they don't get it in our budget? They're not in this budget right now. So if we go to a 2% budget, it's 2% of whatever was approved last year. So they will get nothing. So that would be my biggest concern about the whole, trying to go down that road.
I have that same concern that Amy had. We're going to come to a point where, after deliberations of this board and the Board of Finance, there'll be some decision made on what happens to the warehouse plant budget. If it fails, I don't know what you people do for funding for this coming year. The other thing that I think is, what we have is not right. It's just not right. The people in Warehouse Point, the western part of the town, should not be paying more for fire protection than the people in the eastern part of the town. However, we have something that is working. It is not working well, but I don't see the point of getting in and starting to change things until we do it right. And the right way is to either make a town fire department or have a fire district. My preference is a fire district, because at that point in time, those people responsible for that activity in town have the say as to what the requirements for funding is. Having said that, I would not sign up for that unless it was done by town referendum, not by town meeting, because town meetings can be stacked. Town referendums, people are given the opportunity, every person in town can go to the voting booth and can vote. So my feeling is, leave it alone. I think the complexity of asking what Lou and Jim have asked for is going to leave you maybe with popcorn at the end of the session, and in danger of not having your taxes from your fire district eligible for your money. And if we start doing a bunch of other things, we are walking away from the real issue, and that is to fix the problem. And the people in both fire departments are working on fixing the problem. So I say status quo, and let's go fix the problem.
But how does that help us now? How does that,
It doesn't.
you addressed the fairness issue right on the top, and you know it, and I know it. It's unfair to the tune of almost $500,000.
It is unfair.
And but
It's what
it
it is.
just left. You know, and I know, and the other members know, we have a committee formed, and we're trying to do what you're talking about. Okay, but that can't be done in 5 seconds. That doesn't mean the voters or the taxpayers in Warehouse Point should be hanging by the neck until dead. I mean, you're saying, what do we do? I know what we do. We have to tax for the money we need. Okay, very simple. If this board and the Board of Finance is next, okay, I know what we do. We do what we did last year. We tax. We have to. Otherwise, it's too bad. It isn't going to happen. All right, so the answer is, how about in the meantime, so this committee can come up with something that the town can act on, the voters can act on. How about giving us a break that evens it up a little bit? Take some of the sting out of our tax. That's what we're asking for. We've not been sleeping. You've been to the meetings. I know you have. Charlie's been to them.
Yep.
Jake's been to one, I think, and we're trying. Okay, but it can't happen in 5 seconds. And the long and the short of it, we're trying to overcome territoriality and all that stuff that's been going for 100 years, okay? And I think we're making progress. I'm just saying, don't be unfair until we make our progress, till we get a finished product. That's not right for the taxpayers. That's not right at all.
But it's what it is, Lou.
But it shouldn't be. You have the right, you have the ability, this board and the next board, the finance board, have the ability to make it semi-fair until next year we know what's going on. That's all. didn't ask for a 20-year commitment. I'm sorry, I don't mean to,
No, I understand.
you understand my
I do
argument.
indeed. I've sat in it long enough to understand
Of
it
course,
precisely.
of course. And what I'm trying to say is that we're here seeking some relief for our taxpayers, that's all.
I understand.
And we're not asking for as much relief as they get out here.
I understand your position exactly.
Thank you.
We've had separate discussions about it,
Yes,
and I agree there's a bad inequity, and it should be fixed.
okay.
You want to say something? Go ahead.
Absolutely, I want to say
It's
something.
hard.
You said in your little speech there that they didn't have any money, they didn't get into the budget, and they had to start taxing. They were in the budget. They were getting like 400 grand a year. When they decided to tax, that 400 went into ours. We took it away and we put it in our monies over here. They were getting money.
They were,
Okay,
but they
yeah.
didn't get any money in 2016.
But when they decided to tax, we took that money away, okay? Now, the problems all started on the prior leadership, okay, before you. Okay, that's when everything got going to hell here. If you read it from you guys, I'm not forgiving it to you, okay? I'm not forgiving you anything. I am forgiving it to you. Whatever you need to run the damn thing, like we do Broadbrook, get rid of the fire tax. And I'll vote to give you what you need to run the damn department over there. Because with a fire tax, there's no stopping the fire district from raising the tax whenever they feel like it. I mean, I know the tax here isn't much, but you take a look at Enfield and see what it is. What them people pay in those 5 fire districts, it's a lot of money. I know people that live up there, and they tell me what they're paying. A lot of money. And there's really no stopping it. So even if we gave you the money, you can still raise the fire tax if you wanted to, you know? And that's why I'm against it. There's no limit what you can charge.
Can I respond to that?
Absolutely.
We go through the same budget process that you do. You insinuate that it's just up to a bunch of commissioners who get together under cover of darkness and raise taxes willy-nilly. That's not true. We go by the statutes, we have public hearings, we have public meetings, and we go through a budget process just like you do. So it's up to the voters.
Yeah, but you
The
know,
voters,
Jim,
Steve, the voters approve the budget.
they never show up.
They do show up, and not with dogs and cats either.
Hey, you remember that comment? No, the people
I missed
don't,
that comment first.
the people don't show up to vote. They never show up. That's the problem with this town. Nobody gets off their asses.
What does that mean? They don't
You know what it
control-
means to me? It means they don't care.
No, what it means to me is.
That's what it means
you
to
wanna
me. They
take the
don't
place-
care.
Excuse me. What it means to me is that you are taking it, if they don't show up, we'll tell them what to do, okay? That's what it means, because if they don't show up, the board makes a decision.
Because everybody in the fire department or whoever will show up at these meetings where the taxpayer just sits home. They don't go.
And if the taxpayers think that something corrupt is going on, or taxes are going up too high, then they'll show up.
I don't know what to say about that. They don't show up. They don't show up here. You know, when we have our meetings, they never show up here. It's the same group of people that show up here, you know, all the time. It's the same thing.
This side of town getting $600,000.
Well, then get rid of the fire tax and we'll give you the same over there.
No. Oh, you're gonna
Yeah,
get,
where are you gonna find it?
Whatever we have to do, if we have to raise the taxes a little bit in town to make it fair, okay? I'd rather do it that way than slapping somebody with a fire tax, because when you try to get the people on this side of town to vote for fire district over here, never gonna happen, guys.
That's the bigger problem. The bigger problem is being worked on now by the 2 departments and some other people in terms of consolidating the fire departments. That has to happen. That will happen.
You're talking about making it one fire department.
Either one fire
That
department or
would, that would
one.
make me happy as hell if it was the East Windsor Fire Department with the Warehouse Point side and the Broadbrook side.
Well, that's,
We're working on
that's,
that.
And let the town
That's what
finance
it-
the whole thing,
that's
take
what it
care of
has
it.
to be, and that's what I'm presuming it will be at some point. The only question is the governing body, whether it's the town or the district. So that's what's being worked on now. But that's the overarching problem that really does have to be fixed because of the staffing
Let me
issues.
just, Steve, you know, I've been talking with them, talking with Broadbrook now for a year about this. And we've gotten to the stage where there's one-on-one communications with the two departments being together and working on this. And it's going to happen because it has to. It's not something that's an option in the future. So the sooner it's done, the better it'll be.
Well, you want the same thing, you want one fire department
Yeah,
with the town taking care of business.
yeah.
That's the way it should be.
But
I'm
until,
not sure about that, Steve. I think that a fire district is a good thing. With a proviso that, and I think it's a good thing because I believe that the firefighters, the commission, the East Windsor Fire District Commission, should have the right, because they have the credentials to establish a budget. And I think they play it fair and straight. I really believe that.
I'm not saying they're not,
But I'm just saying, Steve, that once you, the only proviso I would have is that I don't want to have 15 or 20 people like we've had out here in a town meeting, vote something in. I want to have every single voter in town have the opportunity to go sit or stand in front of one of those voting machines in private and say what they want to say. That's the only proviso I would have. A separate referendum for the fire district, for the fire budget. That's the only caveat I'd put on it. And the question is whether we help the Warehouse Point Fire District this year, because Lou said it, this can't go on forever while they're working a problem. And I say, as bad as it is, we've got something that's working, leave it alone. Because we're going to do something in all our wisdom that'll have a whole bunch of potholes in it that we're going to step in. So let's not do that.
Jason, do you want to say anything?
I'm good.
Okay. I just want to follow up and bring us back to our, what we're going to have to decide. We don't decide it now, we shouldn't. We haven't decided any budget yet. One thing is, I believe that rather than having us, the Board of Selectmen, make a decision whether or not to put you guys in the budget, or the Board of Finance making that decision, it should be up to the voters. So I say, put the budget, put this same amount in the budget, $464,000. Let it go to the first referendum and let the voters vote. If they vote it down, then they've spoken. Then you can say, okay, we're going to take it out of the budget this year and do just what Andy said, because we do have to fund it. And at some point, and I think when, as Amy said, at some point, and I think we'd have to work it out, but it's probably about the beginning of May, and our first referendum is in May, so maybe after the first referendum, then they have to take it out, because then you got to start printing the bills and start doing the taxation. But I think personally we should leave it in, and if the voters of East Windsor said, no, we're not funding the Warehouse Point, the fire district at this time, then they've spoken. But give them a chance.
So you're going to ask those questions?
they don't vote on lines like that. They vote
No,
on.
but you can do
no.
informative questions, though.
Go ahead, what would you say?
You can do informative questions.
Well,
Was the
that's a good idea.
town budget too high? Should it include, was the Board of Ed budget too high, too low?
We could do
There
that.
are informative questions that could be asked.
So we can work on that. We haven't done it, but also what I would say is that the Board of Finance would do that. If the first referendum fails, then the Board of Finance has to adjust the budget so it has a chance of passing.
What we're asking for is for the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to get behind it
Mhm.
and support this. Not just say, if the voters vote the budget down on the first try, then Warehouse Point gets out. We'd like your help to make this happen. This has been going on for 3 years. 3 years ago, the town Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen realized a $400,000 hole when we were removed from the budget. And presumably still enjoying that. And I, you know, just to boil it down to a simple thing, I'm a taxpayer. I pay my home, East Windsor taxes. I pay, say I pay $150 fire tax. In my East Windsor taxes, I'm paying another $130 or 40 or 100, or whatever it is, for Broadbrook Fire Department, and that's not right. And the simplistic way to fix this, there's a lot of ways you can crunch numbers, but the most simple way to try to bring this around to some fairness is what we're talking about. Appropriating a like amount to the Warehouse Point fire service as is appropriated to Broadbrook. That's what the town attorney came up with, your town attorney came up with in the first place 3 years ago. And then said it needed more study. I don't know what else was going to be studied, but if it needs to be studied, let's study it, but let's do it. Until such time as we can get our fire departments consolidated under one governing body, whether that's going to be a district or a board of finance, a town board of finance. Well, let's get some relief now.
How do you see the two fire departments coming together? I mean, that's what we
We're
want.
working on it.
That's what we'd like to have, but does that mean getting rid of the fire district to do
No,
so?
it doesn't. The
Well,
third,
no, that's one.
well, that's one way of doing it.
That's
The
one
way
option. It's either got to be a town fire department that you're advocating, or a town fire service under a district board of governors that he's talking about.
We wouldn't have
If
to
one or the
compete with
other,
this
we
guy.
have to decide on it, and we have to do it.
But that's a conversation that you folks are having as leaders in the
Right.
department. That's not for us to have.
Right.
We're talking about the budget and whether or not we're going to include this in the vote. So we should stay on that.
Well, if like Bob said, put it out to the voters, and they vote yes, the voters have spoken, I would have to back that up.
Well,
It's their money, you know, it's not my money.
But they don't vote by lines. They vote on the whole budget. And then the decision makers take over and decide how to restructure the budget. So after that happens, if these votes fail, if there's a willingness on the part of the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance to keep that money in for Warehouse Point, then you'll find it somewhere else.
I think that 2%, that is a limiting factor, I think.
No kidding.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
Okay, Police Department.
Why are you back from Florida?
Came to this meeting.
No way.
That's not true.
Oh, my.
I would be disappointed if it was.
Well, I tried.
You got a tab in there somewhere.
Tab 3 is public safety.
You see the tab was,
3?
Tab, yeah, go to 3. It's right there. at the
The very
beginning.
top thing is the police, public safety. Do you not have it in tab 3?
So anyway, we'll start off, any questions? I'm sure you guys have all read the packet.
probably haven't had any questions.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Before we get to that, on the second page of the goals and priorities, the third page, you talk about radio system.
Yeah.
Which sounds like it's pretty antiquated.
It is, and that's a conversation that we really need to start having.
Is there anything in, I couldn't find in here for budgeting for this year? Is it?
No, and what's important is this is a town-wide radio system. So this is
Yeah,
not
I
police and
understand
fire.
that. And my question is, what's the right thing to do? Should we be part of a regional communications radio system, or should we
We're
have our
exploring
own town system?
We're exploring a regional system, using the statewide system. I'm not sure if you're aware the state police had left the old system to go on to, I think the name of.
Next Gen is the new one.
Well, no, this would be the radio system.
Oh, okay.
That the state police have. And so that old system is being run by another company. And it's a possibility that we may be able to get into ground floor.
Of the state police?
Of the old state police radio system.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
So that will continue to exist? The
Yes,
old-
there is a separate company that runs the old state police system, and it's something that we're exploring. But our radio system that we have now is something that we really need to get on our radar.
Why would the whole state police system be of a benefit? Why did they change it up?
I think cost factor, once you start looking at what it would cost for us to replace our town system here, I think going to the state police system is going to be a much less expensive option. And then again, if we can get other towns like Suffield and Windsor Locks to buy into this idea also.
And they regionalize it?
That would help drive the cost down, yeah.
But
Not
why-
statewide, but regionalized?
Right, just regional.
Why did they abandon that to go to something else? Is it, are there flaws? I mean, I would hate to hook up with something that somebody isn't.
That I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I think they're still on, but it's a, and I don't have all the information on that.
It's ongoing. It's a research project right now, and any new research project, there's interface problems and hardware problems.
What's the timing on something like that? You know, you can't have a communication system that's breaking down, particularly for the police department or the fire department, and when there's a serious issue in town.
Right, and that's why it's in this packet, so it's a.
But there's no money.
We need that. It's not in our budget now, no, it's not.
I guess I'm not making myself clear. Why did the state police get rid of that system to go to a new system? What are those reasons, so that why would we hook up?
They opened it up to local. They're still on it.
What's that in?
They're still on it, they're just opening
I don't
up
think
to
they
local
abandoned it.
departments. They haven't abandoned it yet. They will someday in the future.
But that's what you want to get onto, the old system.
Well, they can.
I believe it's their current system.
I don't need to
But anyway.
be a dead horse and keep this meeting going for 100 hours, but why is it okay for us but not good enough for the state police? What are the different parameters that they are measuring by?
No, they're not abandoning it. They're not abandoning the system.
I may have prefaced it wrong in saying that it's the old system.
So they'll maintain the old system also, the police department? The state police, rather?
Yes.
They'll use the old one as well, a new one?
I believe it's just the one system. I probably boggled this up.
Yeah.
It is one statewide radio system that all law enforcement entities have a chance to get on.
This
It's
is
not
next gen.
old, it's not antiquated, it's a radio system statewide that is now allowing local police departments onto it. It is just a potential option that's being researched or the plan hurdles.
So we might be able to get into this system then?
Maybe.
That's different.
And what would happen to the fire? Can you explain that? The communication with the fire department, we switch over.
It's one of the hurdles to jump over. Their radio requirements, as far as the radios go, are different than what the police are, but but it would still be something better than looking at what we are looking at, which is digital So it's becoming beyond its useful life.
Was that presented as part of CIP? Thinking no.
No.
Okay. I didn't remember hearing it.
Does it have any serious limitations now on our current system, or is it functioning okay?
It's functioning. We have had issues, but we're able to repair. So, but it's something that we need to look at.
So it's not a matter of
it's not a dire
not being able to
consequence right
respond
now,
properly
but
to
it will
emergencies in town.
I'm sorry?
It is not a matter of not being able to respond to emergencies in town. The communication system, the radio system is not limiting our capability.
Currently, no. If you look further into that, you'll notice that we have a canine program that we are bringing back.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that, but I was going to wait till later. I'm getting into the budget line.
Okay.
Officer salary overtime has gone up by 26+%. Why is that? What's happened there? That's a big step in 1 year.
It's from what they asked for last year. It's almost the same number. It's that every year it gets cut.
Right, if you go
So
back.
it's not really that
last
big of an
year,
increase.
What our budget request was last year, we requested 341 last year. It was cut to 275. So here again, if you go back and look at our, matter of fact, I think Amy had published the 3-year history.
They all have it.
And if you look at the look-back numbers, that's right in line with where we should be.
What is it year to date?
So to call it an increase is actually kind of false. It is an increase, but it's not that kind of percentage. If you go to the look back, FY 15-16, officer salary overtime was $341,978. FY 16-17 was $331,387. These are actual numbers.
Yep.
And then 334, 245. And this year we're requesting 348, 022.
Where are you to base so far?
As of February 2nd, they have spent $248,000. They have $26,000 to get them through the rest of the year.
And to pace, they're ahead of pace then?
Yeah, they're on 91, almost 92% spent.
And keep in mind that right now, currently right now, we are down 4 officers. We did fill 2 vacancies, but those officers won't come online for probably about another 10 months. So that's 2 officers there, and I've got one out with a serious illness, and I've got another one out, which is now deployed in the military. And that's a vacancy that we have to hold.
So the new number is pretty much in line with what you've had for 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18. The upside. And likewise, on the dues and education and dues, that went up, not a lot of money, but a significant percentage, 28%.
What line are you in?
Same one. No, this, well, I was in the,
Oh, okay.
It's the 52,400. Education and dues, it's $45,000 currently. And you're asking for 50, you're asking for 57?
and.
Yeah, 57. So it's going up 12.
What line are you?
52,400.
I think that's another case of what they asked for last year was the same number.
As you go through it, and a number of those things are specified as contractual obligations.
Yes, they are.
Their contractual obligations, yes.
Oh.
And it also requires
And,
that you guys trained and fit, and it does save the town money because before that, we haven't had any lawsuits against us.
There's something else to keep in mind is, that line got zeroed by accident last year.
Education and dues?
The 12,000.
The 12,000, there was the 12,000 for the dispatchers.
Oh, so it should have been 57 last year.
Yes.
12 got pulled out by accident.
Right.
So the 57 is the same ask, which is what I thought it was.
Oh, that makes sense.
You said that
got
12,000.
zero.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So,
So it's the same number as last year's request?
Yes.
And just as a matter of interest, and on the page here, Bob, that you were looking at, and this is just informational, you've got 10K, 12K, and 4K in there for educational support, people who want to go up to school.
right, it's
Does that get used very much?
Yeah.
It does. That's good.
Your department avails themselves of that well. So there's an old saying in management, one manager says to the other, you know, what happens if we train these people and they leave? And the other one says, what happens if we don't and they stay?
That's a good point.
40 to 50% of our officers all have degrees or are pursuing.
So what is the spend on that line in your degree?
That's part of longevity
What?
for them having degrees. That's where they get paid.
No, that's not what he meant, how much in terms of continuing ed have we spent this year?
Oh, continuing ed.
That won't, you won't get an apples to apples though because it was zeroed out last year.
We've spent $27,000 so far of the 45. So we have spent almost 60%, a little over 60%. So we're ahead. So if we spend all 57, we're going to be over.
Is there a drop in the spring where that'll get eaten up or not? Do you have a big lump in the spring, so we take courses then?
Is it a reimbursement or is it an upfront?
I believe it's enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that the spring semester would have been paid for and the summer semester likely wouldn't start until the fiscal.
And this is college credit?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What's the course credit goal for these days?
Too
My
much.
courses at Westfield are about, give or take, $1,000 a class. But that's on the very low side.
I was just going to say a couple thousand a
Yeah.
class.
It's
Or a 3 credit
$1,000
class.
for a 3-credit course, but that's, you know, if you go to UConn, you're paying 3 times that. It's $3,000 for a 3-credit course.
It is that high, no? That was like 700. Okay.
No,
For course credit. For course credit.
Yeah.
I got a question on all these, this free college stuff. While they're going to classes, are they on the clock?
Yeah. And I thought it was like 21.
You're not on the clock,
For the state.
you're attending these courses.
Right. They are not on.
Not 3.
Not in a master's.
And then, looking at, again, education and dues, it looks like, Amy, looks like for the last 3 years, like it's been about 40,000 that was spent,
Yes.
and now you're asking for 57,000?
Well, they asked for 57 last year, too.
Yeah.
So I don't know why it's not being spent. Not everybody chooses to go.
Yeah,
They have to have pots. They have to have a $10,000 pot for patrol officers, $12,000 for dispatchers. So they have to have a pot of money available by contract.
Right. And
But not everybody goes.
And if it's not expended, it's returned.
Yes.
So, for example, if Andy and I are both members of the police department, and he gets his application in before mine, and there doesn't happen to be any money left, well, I'm out of luck, because the contract says you put 10 grand aside for that, not 11 grand. So Andy got there first, I gotta come back again next year. That's how the contract typically is.
Is there any requirement for maintaining certain grade levels to be able to get that money? Like, for example, at United Technologies, they will pay for it as long as you maintain, I think it's a B or better.
Yes, I believe there is, but it's all contractual, so, but I believe there is language in the contract that speaks to that.
Probably is required to be a passing grade, would be my guess. That's why I'm surprised it's no front without a reimbursement. I had to prove that I had passed.
What was the capital? What did you have in there? The 9?
52.5.
9670, yeah, 52,500.
That was for the radar displays. This is equipment that we use for traffic studies. And it's something that we use, which the town actually benefits from, so we public works benefits from some of this equipment.
It's portable and can be moved around town.
These are the signs that when you go by, it tells you how fast you're going? No?
No.
What is it, Bob?
It does vehicle counts.
Actually, I'm sorry.
Yes, they do, and they also report back to the patrol.
But they are the signs that tell you what your speed is.
Yes.
It's just not a separate trailer.
You're looking for two of them.
We have been borrowing them from surrounding towns, and usually they're broke, and they don't work, and we just spend a lot of time trying to get.
Any grants for those?
I always thought those were just warning signs. I didn't think they actually went
No,
there.
No, they do some good data collection too, so. If there were grants, I'm sure our administration would have applied for them.
I think Ellington got a grant to get theirs.
It's a possibility. We can look at it.
Yeah.
And it's in here because it's not big enough to be in capital.
Right.
So I've renamed all those lines as equipment purchases because they're not capital.
Yeah. Saw the article in the paper the other day that in Manhattan, they want to have Waze take that off of the warnings of the speed.
Oh, and ticket?
You know what Waze is?
Sure.
Yeah. They want them to stop doing the warnings. I don't know if they'll get it through or not.
That's an elite search. You're not going to pull that off.
On the page after the line item, you've got 510, 200, last three digits are 660, dispatcher salary. It's going up by 15K. Is there an additional dispatcher or what is it?
No, and there's a good reason for that. What we're aiming to do is to make one of our dispatchers supervisors, and make that a supervisory position.
Within the dispatchers union or within the supervisor union?
Within dispatch.
Okay, so it's a lead. You're making a lead. Okay.
The leave?
A lead. You can designate somebody who's in the bargaining unit as the lead for that particular function. It keeps them within the same contract. It allows them to sign off on timesheets or scheduling requests or the like without actually bumping them into another bargaining unit.
About half of that amount is for that purpose. The rest of it is increased by contract.
So you have 6 dispatchers now?
Yes.
I think you do.
Yes, we do.
Those 6, all are direct reports to whom currently? Or is there somebody, is it a flat org chart or is it a pyramid structure?
Dispatchers are flat, they report to a liaison supervisor who has a multitude of other duties that comes out of control for the police side.
Do you
So
think-
no policy oversight, training oversight, scheduling, all that kind of stuff.
The intention would be though that one of those 6 becomes the lead, the other 5 report to the one, so you're reducing the number of direct reports. That's a better
It's still
management
a
structure.
working position, yeah, still
That's-
fills a shift, doesn't create
That makes a lot of
oversight.
sense. 6 is about the number, 5 really is about the number that you would want to get to start re-examining that, because if you start having too many, you're actually paying somebody to just approve timesheets and time off requests. I think there's a need.
And again, it's about half of that number, that 14,845.
Because of the contract.
Speaking of that, the numbers that you have on your sheet here, those do not include any changes to the union contracts coming up.
Yeah, there's no salary in here other than the additional position, bump in that position.
Do we include let me ask this the right way. In any case in our budgeting process where there is an expired contract, do we include a presumption on what the contractual increase would be, or do we leave it flat until it's
The
resolved?
only thing that's in there is the steps.
Yeah,
If
steps are-
somebody's
steps are
halfway
already
to a
established.
year,
That's already
they'll get their
established.
steps, but no, none of the contracts, that's why you'll see a new line called non-negotiated wages in this year's budget, because we have 4 contracts out of,
Okay, so
Contract.
typically when a contract has expired, we keep it
Flat.
0 in terms of contractual increase,
yep,
and that's uniform across town service.
yes.
Thanks, thank you. So if I could ask a question pertaining to your budget line, and this is, the new again buzzword is regionalism. So I happen to have, I'll say first and second hand knowledge that some municipalities regionalize their animal control officer function. Is that, and I know we've also tried to do that without success, I think on at least 2 occasions. Is that something that might be considered, you know, down the road? Could we try again?
We could. There's nothing stopping us from trying it again.
But has there been any interest from surrounding communities?
Not to my knowledge. I think we've tried that with Windsor BOS.
Tried with Summers.
Yeah.
Why is that, Bob, do you think? Why is there no interest?
Well, even just getting an ACO officer isn't easy.
Well, it's not,
You know?
typically, it's not a very hard-paying job.
It's a part-time job.
There is an educational component that is somewhat rigorous, and then there's the
And all of their qualifications and everything else it's all through deep. Ag, I'm sorry, which is, it's not through Connecticut Post training or anything like that. So there is an educational component to it, and it's a part-time job. So.
in the past, one of the reasons why we had a deal in place that didn't actually come to be, we were going to use our facility. Correct me when I get this wrong, but it went down in flames at a town meeting because of NIMBY. The notion of locating someone else's or some other community's dogs in East Windsor was resoundingly rejected by the people who live around it, and that was the end of that.
This is probably not the time to get into it, but we should look at that, at regionalization of that function at least.
Yeah,
and that, in fact, South Windsor, the Tyler Center, which you know where that is, where there used to be a fire station on Sullivan Avenue.
Right behind my work.
Okay. They maintain the animals for South Windsor, East Hartford, and Manchester. And I'd like, yes, and I'd like to see if there's capacity where we could do that, because at our last meeting, Jason, we talked about the repairs, right, that are needed down here.
Yeah, there's a $61,000 budget request in, and CIP funded 20 of it to start something because we're having state inspector problems.
Yeah, so I think we should move quickly to see what can we do there, if anything, because that is certainly close to us. That's a lot further away than Manchester to use that, and East Hartford. We're the closest to it.
I'm also aware of an area community that is looking for a facility, but that would have funding to kick in if there was a regional opportunity. I'm happy to talk with you folks offline about that.
This might be a good time to talk about the canine. I recognize that we had a dog either, I guess in 2014, was it retired?
Yeah, as long as we
if we do go after another K-9 trooper, the original cost is relatively high, it's $75K, if you add up all these numbers on the sheet.
But Andy, that's inclusive of a $38,000 grant grant.
Right.
So if you go back,
we've got a.
Yes, yeah, I recognize that. It's a big number, and what's the recurring cost for this? There's got to be training,
It is, and it's right down at the bottom line there, 15.
is that 15,000?
Yeah.
A recurring cost?
That's the recurring one.
which is already included in the budget.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we are budgeting.
Now, the give back, what is a JAG grant? What's JAG stand for?
Judge Advocate General?
That's what I thought, but that's military.
That's
military.
What's the acronym, JAG?
It's a federal grant released to state control. So it's overseen by the state of Connecticut.
What do they grant with that?
There's a list of opportunities and there's a list of things you can't do with it as well. And it is a non-matching grant.
Oh, really? Those don't happen much.
No, and we got
It
it.
is specifically for the acquisition of a dog, an animal?
No, there's a host of things that towns do with it.
But we did apply just for the K-9 officer.
That's what
And we were awarded for the dog.
Correct.
Now, we can't say we want to get one of those flashing road signs instead and have that pass muster, right?
No.
No.
So that money is already available, the 38K?
Yes.
So we spend it to get the K-9 officer or it goes away. Correct?
I didn't hear you.
We spend it to get the K-9 officer or it's gone.
Well, there's a process that you can try to reallocate.
Okay.
We didn't specifically request it for the officer, we requested it for the vehicle and equipment, specifically for that reason.
That's the biggest cost to us, to get the program up and running is the vehicle. And again, with the amount of calls that we've made to Crest to use K-9, oftentimes there's a long wait time. In some cases, by the time they get here, the situation is completely dispersed. So we have a need for it.
The calls to where? I'm sorry, didn't you?
Connecticut Regional, it's Crest that we.
It's the regional
Other
SWAT.
towns,
Regional
places.
And then, so if we needed a dog,
Yeah.
and there's been plenty of times we have.
Do you know how many a month you call?
It was 40.
I don't have those numbers with us.
How about a
I
trained
want to
dog?
say, crazy guess off the top of my head, I want to say it's about 40 minutes left.
It's roughly, that's just shy of one a week. It's like one every 9 days.
They require a canine?
So
And I could be way off my number, but I think that's the number that we were talking about.
if this were to get approved, would we be using this for certain drug enforcement actions?
In a
Just
K-9,
one, yeah.
a K-9, if you have to get one, you have to have one that's trained. Is that, when you look at the cost of that? And
That's in the breakdown.
Yeah, that's part of it.
for the training? of
The
K-9?
16,000 is the purchase of the dog, including the training.
Is that,
That's
It's a top line
pretty
item.
reasonable.
is the expense for taking the officer offline to do the training in there?
We're still paying the officer to do that.
But if he's at some facility training, then you gotta replace him, right?
Depending on how the scheduling works out, but then again, that happens with all of our officer training.
Right.
Every year we
Well,
train.
this is I don't know
I hear
how long
what
the
you're
training
saying.
period is, but I assume it's more than a week.
Right, I hear what you're saying, I wouldn't have it.
Trained dog. I have a friend of mine, his son just got one of those dogs to help him, and he had to go to Long Island and stay there for over a month service dog.
Big difference,
It is a big difference, but even with the service dog, it was overall, you had to be there 24 hours a day.
Canine training done right at post?
No, we'll be doing it locally with companies or regional.
Where's the training done?
He said he's gonna do it locally.
Do it locally.
It depends on where we choose and how we choose to go about doing it. We'll manipulate the schedule as best we can to defer all the costs as much as possible.
When you say locally, you mean here in town?
No, in the area.
In the area.
Connecticut at least, not Long Island, although I'd like to go to Long Island.
Toughest that year.
So Bob, are you part of that training?
I'm sorry?
Are you part of that training with the dog? You put the big mittens on and
No.
just let him go?
Yeah, liability issue there.
Looking for volunteers.
With or without the sleeve.
Sleeves out.
You know, that was part of the question I had in mind. I suspect there are other towns in our area who have dogs that could be made available to us.
And that's what we call it.
And that's pretty late now, I think. And the state police certainly have dogs. I've seen them on TV, on site at various places, when they were looking for people or whatever. What's the legal risk in having a dog like this that you know, decides that I'm the bad guy, they bite you instead, you know?
That's all statute and law. That's all,
How many times have we been sued with the other dogs you have? You know?
I can't recall a
I
single
don't
one.
recall any.
So, I had a municipal police officer in one of my courses in the spring, and as a demonstrator in the fall. As a demonstration, they had their canine unit actually come into the class, and in a class of 25 people making noise and moving around and rubbing the dog, it is absolutely trained to obey the master. When the master lets it do its own thing, it's a dog, but from across the room, it can absolutely hear over the rest of the noises, the commands that it's trained to obey. It's a really impressive process.
When we had the dog, we used to bring him to different town events for the public to see their kids.
There was one on television the other night, one on TV, it was with the state police, and that dog was trained in German for the command.
Most are, yeah.
But not the regular stuff, it was just English.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Part of the reason for that is I know stop, or I know sit, you know, but I don't know how to say that in German. So if I'm the bad guy and I'm trying to give the dog a command, I got to know it in German to get him to stop.
If you listen.
Right. They typically only listen to the master.
So this police vehicle for the dog, can that be used on as a regular patrol car?
It would be whenever that canine officer is on patrol, yeah.
I mean, even without the dog, you know?
It could, but there's a lot of equipment that's specific to the dog, the hobby pop system, which is what operates the door locks. There's a lot of stuff that goes with the cage for the dog, so it wouldn't be really a vehicle that you could make an arrest and put somebody in the back of the car. So it's really a specific for the canine.
Don't get the aggressive mileage either that you do on a regular.
Would that vehicle be left at the police station?
I remember how we used to do that.
Dog goes home, right?
Dog goes home.
It goes home with the officer, so.
But not the car?
And the car.
And the car.
Huh?
And the
But- And the car, yeah. And that's, would be the only case in which. And that's been the past practice as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's pretty industry standard.
The total requested budget by the police department is $3.8 million. Does that include benefits?
No.
That's 3.4,
Yeah, what did I say?
3.8.
Oh, I'm sorry, 3.
No, that would not include benefits, nor would anybody else's. When you get to insurance and employee benefits is where you would see medical insurance, FICA, retirement payments, those are all lumped together townwide in one area.
Can you pull out the police benefits? I would suspect that the insurance for a police officer, which is a much more dangerous job than the treasurer's job most of the time.
I don't think so. Comp might be a little more for a factor, but like medical insurance, it doesn't matter where you work. If you're on a HSA family plan, every single HSA family plan is paying the same dollar amount.
Is everybody on an HSA plan? I know the police
Now,
are. Yeah, so there.
we have some that still have PPOs. Part of that's because the contracts have long expired and not been negotiated.
I wonder if that's why they're not being negotiated.
Could be.
So, looking at your request, and I've reviewed everything in here, where do you think you could save us some money?
Where we can save money is at the end of the year when we give it back. Yeah. What we're going to lose.
No, I'm talking about in your budget. Where do you feel you could save us some money?
I'm not sure that we can. Typically, we ask for what we need. In this case, this year, we are asking for the Canine program. We are budgeting for that.
But that would be foolish to cut because we're getting half of that for free.
Right.
So the good side of that goes away if we, that's penny wise and pound foolish.
Does it go away, or can you transfer it someplace within?
We might be able to, but it's a risk.
But I thought you could use it for multiple things.
Well, no, you had to apply for whatever you wanted it for. We applied for it as a K-9 grant.
But is that fully loaded, that canine officer?
What do you mean?
The cost of the canine officer? As I mentioned about the fact going to what we want. Okay, we're only in a yearly budget process. And year one, if that person is going to the training, and you have to have somebody else fill that slot, possibly in overtime. So, you know, I don't think it's fully loaded here. I don't think we have all the numbers to get.
As far as the scheduling that may have to occur to cover that
No, I'm just saying
Recurring costs.
Yeah, things that, you know, that aren't loaded into the cost of that in year one.
Well, you're not hiring a new officer.
No,
It's a duty assignment, right?
Right.
So it's just like the SRO is an additional officer. It's one of the sworn officers.
Right.
So in terms of your head count, it's the same, which means the salary is already incorporated.
Right.
There isn't the overtime to cover the shifts, but depending on how you schedule, it depends how much you need for training. No different than every other training they have to go to.
Except that, Amy, what is the training period for this compared to other training?
That's a legit question.
That's what I don't know.
That I don't know either, and but I can get you that answer.
Okay.
You guys know how long it takes to train canine?
Not off the top of my head, but it's like any other officer. We have detectives that takes a large amount of time to train a detective. Takes a large amount of time to train an SRO, as you mentioned. This is just another function of the job that we do. And as it was said earlier, we make do with the training budget that we're given and we make it work.
Yeah, the reason I was drilling down a bit is just because I was wondering, because there's another factor involved in that there's another living thing. If that changes with the, I mean, I understand that there are certain trainings that you need to go through, but I'm wondering if it's more complicated because there's the dog that needs to be trained as well as the
My
officer.
understanding of the process is the dog is trained and purchased from a company who trains the dog, and then the person has to be worked into
So
that
it's
training.
the bonding, okay. So it's not like you're starting from the puppy and turning it
Correct.
into
No.
the weapon.
The dog that we would get would already be
From
trained.
the company. Right.
And so if that dog were turned over to an officer who had handled canines before, they could the next day go out and do real work, huh?
I
No.
wouldn't say that.
There's got to be certification.
No. There is a bonding time for the dog.
Right.
Have you selected a person from your organization yet?
No.
Would it be a different officer than previously?
Yeah, that officer's been promoted.
Oh, he has. I didn't know that.
He's a sergeant.
Good for him.
But it'd still be helpful to know. Yeah.
Well, I'll
I
find
want to
out
know
where
that number fully loaded, what it's going to cost. Now, if they take the car home, are they on the clock till they get home? When they leave in the morning, how does that work?
I believe they're
Shift
shifts.
hours.
But that's why they have the Garcia. That's explained in there. The Garcia decision requires us to get X amount of money per week for grooming, cleaning, things of that nature.
So that's the Garcia salary for
Yes.
care of the dog.
But in terms of, I think Charlie's question, in terms of the question of portal to portal versus roll call, all officers are
It's
still
all
responsible
portal
for
to
roll.
portal.
It is portal to
Portal
portal?
to portal. I mean, you're not on duty when you're driving home at 3:15 in that car.
You are not on duty.
No, you're not getting paid for it.
Okay, so it's roll call dependent, it's not portal to portal. Portal to portal is you put your key in the ignition in your driveway.
For compensation and injury,
Yes.
it's portal to portal is what I was saying, but it is not being paid. You're not
Understood.
getting paid.
Understood.
Still covered by comp. so you
We're
get
all
on.
covered like that.
Yeah.
Up to and-
Yeah. But the key needs to be in the ignition.
Yeah. Which we have
Yep.
experience with.
What else you got?
As a matter of interest, how's our crime rate with these days? Up or down?
Continuing decline.
Excellent. I do have
Have some data to share with us?
Probably the greatest place that we could have that discussion would be at the police commission meetings where we discuss it every month.
You must keep track of it, so.
Yeah, could you get us some information about that?
Come to the meeting, it would be the best
No,
time.
could you get us some information,
What would you like?
what the crime stats are?
Okay.
FBI probably.
So use your stuff.
And types of crime,
That's
Yeah,
also,
it's all
that's
broken
in,
out.
that's in the FBI stats. As a personal issue, and I am hesitant to bring this up, but I recently had an experience where I approached the department for a particular service and was told that you guys don't do it. I went down on Sunday to have a car seat installed, thinking that the police departments can help you make sure you install car seats correctly. And I went down there, they said, oh, we don't actually have anybody who's certified to do that. And they sent me to South Windsor. So my wife and I drove to South Windsor, and they said, we're happy to do that between the hours of 8 and 11 on Wednesdays. Like, well, that's not a service either. So
Okay.
I don't know what it takes to get certified in order to do that, but there's a particular demographic in town I'm becoming more familiar with that would probably appreciate that.
If I can talk to that for a second, Jason?
Sure.
So it's not just the training, it's the cost of the noodles and all the equipment and gear that you put into that car. It also requires time. Like we perform a service that South Windsor doesn't. We perform public fingerprinting. South Windsor sends you to a private company to do that. It's time, manpower, training, budgeting. It's expensive to run that program. We ran it for years, and I couldn't afford it anymore.
Car seat.
We use YouTube.
The Brunswick Fire Department has been running like a clinic to do this car seat installs for quite a long time. I think they do them on Saturdays.
Well, that might be some good information to share.
Yeah, I've only got a couple Saturdays left, so we'll. You guys have anything else in your budget?
Close to that?
Yeah, dates.
That's the first time I've heard you say my wife and
Oh, then you'll be surprised to hear we're expecting a baby in like 20 days.
Congratulations.
Okay, we can wrap this up then, huh? All right, thank you.
Good job. Sure.
Well, don't they have the emergency?
Well,
Or does somebody different do that one? Oh, okay. Phew.
Jason, is that hard to put a car seat in for a kid?
Apparently there's a right way and a
I
wrong
was just gonna
way.
say that there's a wrong way to do it, unfortunately, now. And a lot of the cars, it's tricky to get it to work the way it's supposed to, and your kid to be safe.
The newer cars have specific,
which I learned over the weekend.
you plug, it snaps in
Yeah.
easy, and the third one goes over the back seat.
And you actually eject, the base stays in, and you just eject the carrier out and then move the car to car.
So Charlie, just to be clear, I'm gonna get you some information on the
Jason,
JCO
until your kid gets too big to carry in that
ACO
carrier.
utilization,
Very
UCR
quickly.
stats for you, and then canine training time.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the
the wrap is there. But that job is very low.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, Mark?
Chief Barton,
First time in the government, do you do that over at your office?
No, and actually, I don't think Robert does it anymore, because there's a recertification program that you have to go through, and it's like a 56-hour class to get certified to put cars in.
but they were doing it for a quick.
They were doing it, but I don't think they kept up on the continuing education.
Car seats are put in wrong. It matters if you get it wrong. It's kind of important elements.
They do it over in Ellington, as a matter of fact, these facilities in the Crystal Lake area, and I think she went to the Crystal Lake Fire Department, and probably in town, but they do, in fact, do it for the town hall.
Colorado.
If you look at Connecticut Safe Kids, there's a website, Connecticut Safe Kids, and they have a listing of all the places that we
HPD's got to do it. You know, my brother's high up over there at this point.
I'm not sure they do, to be honest with you.
Really? Anyway, it's your show, guys. Thanks for the feedback, though.
So we're submitting a budget for $18,206, which is about $334 more than last year. So that's a 1.87 budget increase. Of that, 5,700 and change comes from the grant that we do through the state of Connecticut, so the town of East Windsor would have to pay roughly $12,506. The upcoming year, we will continue to meet all of our meetings, our standards. We're going to spend a lot of time upgrading policy and procedure as the system is really changing statewide. So that's where we are. There's only a few line items in there. I will mention the stipend. I believe I write it in the narrative. That covers all three of us that are paid through the stipend. And then the remaining lines are what they are.
And the three are whom?
Myself is the director, Deputy Chief Hart is the deputy director, and Judy Tweedley is our clerk.
A couple years ago, I went to a drill and sat in the emergency room. They haven't done that lately, I don't believe.
We have.
Oh,
Twice a year, right?
I invited you
I missed it. When was that?
Is it 4 times?
4 times.
4 times a year? Wow.
One is the major one that the entire town goes to.
Mhm.
Public Works, fire departments, medical, everybody.
One thing that I talked about last year, that's not directly related to this, but it was about getting together and understand what the plan is in the event that there is an emergency within the town, which I understood is confidential, but you were going to schedule something. And kind of followed that up in November. Haven't heard anything, but I think as a board we should be familiarized with what it is. Not that I don't believe it's in place, but I think it's just good business to know. And if there's anything we know that we could run through it, fine. If not, we have to ever say, well, what did you do? What did you have? So if you could do something about that next month or so, that would be good.
But when is the annual one?
October, right?
Yeah, it fluctuates. It's been as early as August and as late as November. This year's mid-October, late September.
I haven't seen the dates yet.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
That's where you really should go to. Because what the state does is actually call with scenarios, and you figure out who needs to be activated, what's going to do, so you kind of get to see the whole, it's like...
It's like a tabletop.
Yeah, it's like scenarios, different things that you deal
I can
with.
include you on the email for that meeting. I think it really, I can tell you all day long what we do in certain scenarios, but I can show you because they come over and they say, this just happened in your town, deal with it. Now, the fire chiefs are there, medical's there, schools are there. If you have to open a shelter, you have the school people there, okay, we're going to the high school, we need to be there in 2 hours. Joe, move the generator. Dr. DeBarge, get your personnel for maintenance there, that type of thing. So we pull our policy out and then we actually do it and make sure everybody's still on the same page. And then you can see every department head working in what we call unified command. And you'll see if someone has the highest level of training or experience, like Chief Barton, who knows a lot about hazardous spills or whatever, he would take control of that scene. If it was something different, then maybe, you know, highway would do it or whatever. And you'll see those people start to tell people what to do.
Incident commanders.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'd be particularly interested in whether, well, not whether, what your plan looks like for something terrible happening like the school incident in Connecticut. I'm sure you people have got something worked out, so you're going to try to handle something like that, some catastrophe like that. I'd just like to know.
Yeah, we meet with Dr. DeBarge on a regular basis. We did some table topping several months ago at her building with all of her department heads to make sure we were all on the same page, including training and policy writing and things of that nature.
That's likely protected by FOIA, though.
Well, I'm not going to tell you, you know, numbers and locations and things of that nature. So when emergencies happen, you learn real fast that it can go to hell in a handbasket real fast.
Yeah.
We have plans in place, we have training in place. More importantly, we have the networking, and we meet regularly with the right people. So
Obviously, Chief, something like that, known by a huge number of people, is the best thing of all. But should something bad like that happen, there's plenty of blame to go around with everybody. I'd just like to understand.
I believe that was 2 or 3 years ago. That was part of the statewide crew. It was a school event, if I remember correctly, but I'm not sure. But yeah, we can discuss emergency planning.
If there was a power outage, where would we house people now, like an ice storm or something?
High school.
A high school, so
Yeah.
you got power there now.
Well, we have a portable
generator.
generator and a program in place to have it hooked up
Okay.
for a portion of that building.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, do we do much, not to get off track here, but if there is a power outage and we've got really extreme weather, and there have been where they open up the warming centers and so forth. I don't know how we're telling people today where that is. We don't have billboards outside the town hall. If there's a power outage, your computer's obviously not going to work, and to be able to go online, that would be crimped quite a bit, I would think. I don't know if you've thought through that, but I don't think people really know.
We have a lot of avenues to take. We've had requests, I believe I've talked to the first selectman at length about warming centers. All of the events that we've experienced over the last years has been non-town-wide, where there's no real loss of power and things of that nature. So, yeah, knock on wood, because prior to that, we had many of them. So
Several or so.
we're a hardy town where people, they don't come to warming centers unless they don't have power or heating options. So if the event's going to happen, we have reverse 911 systems if the phone lines are still up. We've also gone as far as not having phones and cellular service and everything that we had. We were in the worst of the worst. We went out and put sandwich boards out all over town. We went out and drove in the police cars and talked on the PA systems up and down the neighborhood. Warming centers are open. Go to the high school, come to the police station, that type of stuff. If an emergency is happening from
reverse 911 to your cell, to your home, to Facebook, to all that stuff. If it really hits the fan, we're gonna drive around in your neighborhood. Our highway plows have led us to calls. Our fire departments have worked with us and slept in their fire stations. We work really well as a team.
I think we should put something on the website under that, if a power outage is, long-term power outage, that, these are the steps we're going to take.
We have done that. It goes out regularly. It refers people to 211 for services. It refers.
But is it standard on the website now?
Our Facebook page on the police department side of it does it.
No, on the town website.
There are connections in to emergency management sites. Yes, there are.
Okay.
Anything else on your budget proposal?
No, that's it.
Okay, any further questions?
Nope.
Okay, good, thank you.
Do you guys do communications?
Say that again?
Do you guys do the communications one?
The way it works, it has worked for years, is we help the first selectman manage that, but we generally don't present. I mean, if you have questions.
That's a town-wide thing, and the only reason we've been doing the management side of it for years, because no one was controlling it, and everybody would attack it, and it would be gone in minutes, and then all of a sudden, the fire department needs a radio, or police department needs whatever, and there'd be nothing there. So we generally just manage it, but we don't propose it or present it.
I will tell you, a big chunk of it is the Taunton County Mutual Aid Fire Services.
Yeah.
So it's something that's a standard.
We do have a small service agreement with Marcus Communication that they renewed. I believe it's.
Yeah, it's 15,900.
That sounds about right. So generally speaking, we'll get it from, find out if there's any increases. We'll reach out to Marcus and ask for them to submit. They submitted this year. I don't think they went up at all.
Why is it 26 then?
There's two pieces. There's two pieces. The 15.9 is the Marcus, and then, let's see, what else is in there? CROG, Capital Mobile Data Communication System User Fees, $11,000.
There's your 26.
Okay. Everybody's got a finger in the pie.
Interstate battery, when we need radio batteries,
That's fine.
just little reprogramming some stuff. So that's the other things that are in there.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Good, thank you.
Okay, we do, well, we have public participation. Go ahead and say something.
If I recall, we had those problems back in that October storm, remember that?
Yeah.
If I recall, could be wrong, but I don't think so. The school system did not want to open the doors to the school down there to let people go in.
We didn't have a generator yet. We got one subsequent to that.
They didn't want them to use the showers or anything.
They had lost power too, and they didn't have a generator that was powerful enough to light the building back up. So that it actually wasn't a viable alternative at that point. After that, as part, I think it was a CIP purchase, we bought a generator that was powerful enough to turn that into a shelter if need be. That's actually, it was that October storm that drove that home as a need.
But Steve, to your point, that was an issue, of how things were handled at the time, because they were dispensing bottled water and some food, and they did it up at the town garage, but nobody knew that. There was no way anybody could find out what that was about. I had to go there bringing the branches from everything that came down. That's the only reason why I knew it, but nobody went there to get anything. So that's one thing we should make sure we have a way to communicate to people if you do have.
Most people do still have their cells when other things go down. And that's why they come to plug in at town halls or the annex or, wherever they can go to get at the school, so.
Okay, public participation. Anybody want to say something? All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
A lot of people aren't made to read that book, huh, Jason?
What's that?
A lot of people aren't made to read that book.
Not about what you think it is.
Well, I'm looking for another challenge. I probably can't shut it.
Keep telling me I want to help you guys. Keep telling me.
Oh, Thursdays is short. We just have assessor and human services. Under assessor, do we want to,
Well, human services, I think we have, only Parks and Rec?
well, yeah, all of them.
Yeah.
Now, did you put it also on the regular agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
It starts
So
at
if
the
we don't
beginning.
finish it. So, under assessor, we have that whole,
Yes, and they just announced. My cousin.
she shared that there was going to be extra revenue.
I would say.
I forgot about that.
That's not correct.
I don't know.
Honestly.
Well, I know it's not correct.
Oh, okay.
Because she used her new numbers of $941 million as the grand list, compared it to 956 and said we went up and we were gonna have $508,000 more tax revenue. Unfortunately, this 941 number, when she signed off last April, which is what's in the budget, was 959. So we're actually going down. If I take the current revenue, I take the current grand list of 956, which is her grand list as she's giving us right now, at the current mill rate, we actually are going down $87,000 instead of going up 508. So I think we need to talk about it. I don't know that she should have presented it this way. You know, when she gave us the budget number last April, she gave us a budget number last April. She should have used that number.
Personal property, I says.
I'm confused. When,
So she signed off as a final grand list in 2017's grand list, April 9th, 2018.
okay.
With a total of 959, 152, 611. That is what we used in the budget that we passed for 19, 18, 19, that we're living in right now. She didn't start with that as the starting point on her this year's. She started with a number that's 17, 18 million dollars less,
Okay.
and showed it going up 15
Oh,
million.
yeah. So how did she get this number?
Well, that's all those adjustments, all those the exemptions that weren't on there, the court cases.
Yeah.
So she took that 959, dropped it by 18 million, started with that number,
And then it went up.
right, and then shared that with the world. Apparently it was in the paper, somebody told me.
I don't know.
Well, so we have a problem.
Any business that owns a little piece of land over there, business is over here. They get taxed by our tax because they're in Brook, that's not right. I don't know what to do about it.